Welcome, and thank you for joining our Decarbonize Software event. My name is Asim Hussain. I am the Executive Director and Chairperson of the Green Software Foundation. The Green Software Foundation is a consortium of 38 for-profit, non-profit, academic organizations with several hundred people taking part, several hundred volunteers taking part in 4 working groups: standards, policy, open source, and the community working group. So the mission of the Green Software Foundation is a future where there are 0 harmful environmental effects from using software. So our theory of change for how to achieve that outcome is focused around 3 core areas. Tech culture. We need changes in tech culture so that the environmental effects from software are made a priority. That's a cultural change. We need changes in knowledge. Once you've made it a priority, what do you need to know? What training do you need to take in order to make the environmental effects of software, to diminish the environmental effects of software? And finally, tooling. We need changes in tooling so the environmental effects of software are easy to act upon. So in today's event, we're super excited to share some of the recent advances in green software in each of those areas, as well as announce the winners of something called the Carbon Hack. So the Carbon Aware software is software that does more when the electricity is clean and less when it's dirty. The open source working group in the Green Software Foundation has created an API and an SDK to help people add carbon aware functionality to their software. Vaughan will be on the event today, and he'll be talking to you a little bit more about the Carbon Aware SDK later on. But this SDK, this is an example of tooling to make it easier to adopt green software patterns in your software. So we've also been running this hackathon called the Carbon Hack, a competition to build the best application using the Carbon Aware API, the Carbon Aware SDK. So over the last month, hundreds of hackers around the world have been creating Carbon Aware solutions to compete for a top prize of $40,000 in the hackathon, or from a total prize fund of $100,000. And we're really excited to announce the winners during today's event. 3 main prize winners, first, second, and third, and also 4 smaller category winners. So stay till the end to find out who won first place. So it's been really amazing seeing the hackathon and seeing the Carbon Aware SDK kind of grow over the last year and especially over the last couple of months. And in the future, we might be asked, when was the moment? When was the moment that carbon aware computing became mainstream? I honestly believe we'll be able to point the finger at this hackathon. So thank you to our sponsors for helping make this event happen, and to the hundreds of people who took part. Whether you won or not, you made a difference and you were part of something important. So a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to gather a few of the leading voices in green software, and they had some great things to say. Let's all listen in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this panel. My name is Asim Hussain. I'm the Executive Director and Chairperson of the Green Software Foundation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sanjay Podar. I'm one of the co-founder and steering member of the Green Software Foundation, also lead tech sustainability innovation in Accenture.
Hi, I'm Nils Fryer. I'm Associate Director in Software Engineering at the Boston Consulting Group, and I'm Chairman of the Green Software Foundations.
Hi, my name is Ben Logan. I'm an Executive Director at UBS in London, and I'm co-lead of the Sustainable Technology Guild at UBS.
Wonderful, and thank you all for joining me today here on this panel. Now, as you all know, one of the theory of change for the foundation that we have is based around 3 areas that we want change to happen. So our outcome they want to achieve is that there should be 0 harmful environmental effects of using software. And in order to achieve those effects, we need changes in the tech culture to make those changes a priority, changes in knowledge so that people know what to change, and then changes in tooling so people can make it easier to make those changes. So I've got some questions for all of you. I'd love to get your feedback on some questions around those topics. So I thought I'd start off with Sanjay, start off with you. We've been talking for several years now. I know you've been in this space for quite a few years now. So I wanted to ask you a tech culture question. So we've seen a lot of change in the tech industry. Large vendors, how large vendors are approaching sustainability. How have you seen this change? And do you have any advice for an organization looking to embrace green software in their products and offerings?
Thanks, Asim, and very, very important question. Definitely there is a change we are seeing last few years. My early study of the importance of a topic like green software in various conversations with CIO, it was quite a revelation when they said this is not something which is a top priority for us. This is the priority of the Chief Sustainability Officer. But I'm surprised how rapidly things change. And today, every CIO I speak to, they are interested to know what's the carbon emission level from my current IT. How do I measure it? How do I reduce it? How do I make it part of the overall ESG strategy and the net zero commitment of my organization? So clearly there's a huge shift. How do I enable my people to embrace green software in the software development lifecycle, right? So clearly on the one hand, we are seeing a shift where green software is becoming a very important tool in the hands of the CIO, and they are very interested to change the culture and embed sustainability. The other aspect I see is not many people have been able to achieve these organizations. So, there are some early adopters, like many in this group, but there are many who are keen to embark on this journey. So what they really need is a kind of an adoption approach, a framework that can help them embrace green software. I've spoken at length on this with some thought leadership as well, but many of our many companies have been proposing an approach, including what we do in Accenture. We talk about sustainability in tech, which is all about green software, and then sustainability by tech, which we all know that technology is needed to accelerate the attainment of sustainable development goal. And more importantly, sustainability at scale, which in fact led us to think about a consortium like the Green Software Foundation, because this is such a new area, none of us can do it alone. And we have been seeing it in the last more than a year and a half, how many new standards, trainings, practices, tools, and do all this at scale, because the time window is not too big, right? So that's to the question on culture, a big shift. People need help. We have to come together.
Yeah, very good points. And I've seen it as well. I've seen the change in culture and the change in the interest in this area has been phenomenal over the last, couple of years. The foundation from its birth to now has been, breakneck speed. It's just been the growth has been phenomenal, and that's shown us that there's such a big interest in this space. Let me move to knowledge. So I'm going to ask it to you, Neil. So, in order to, impact, there is a cultural change that's happened right now to some degree. Like CIOs are asking a lot of questions around this space. Organizations, they want to change, but in order to do that, they need knowledge. So, what are the gaps in knowledge, in your opinion, regarding green software? And, what should everybody know, that they don't know already?
Yeah, no, it's a good question on exactly going to what you said. Now, everyone is curious about that. When a few years ago, let's be honest, it was not on the table at all. Everyone was interested by potentially the performance of the tools, etc., etc. But now green is everywhere for obvious reasons. And I would say it's not a lack of knowledge. I would say we have the knowledge since a long time. We know how to measure stuff, how to aggregate data together, etc. What we lack, it's again visibility. We don't know exactly which data to assemble together. We don't know exactly which data point at the exact time, etc. So it's a little bit more complex, I would say, than simple finance 2 + 2 = 4. Now we need to extrapolate with missing data, really moving from day to night, from 1 hour to another, etc. So it's more, I would say, the different tools or knowledge about how to combine them properly to be able to extract proper insights. And after, the action will be super simple. We all know the very obvious, you can shut down the server over the night. It's not always so simple, but it's a good start. And to extract this type of new behavior, again, you need to gain visibility at the very low level to extract this type of behaviors, on the high level to be able to report to the CEO level. For example, you want to start a new big software inside your companies. We need, from the design phase, to have the tools and the knowledge to be able to take that in account. As of today, we take in account security, maintainability, etc., at different degrees, of course. And now we need to do the same with, I would say, sustainability at broad. Soon as we will start to do that, and we see that when we talk with engineers and with everyone involved with the creation of products, they are interested by that, exactly as we are interested to lower the carbon footprint of cars, airlines, etc. So we need to leverage that, to give them the tools, to give them the time to focus on that. And I'm very optimistic we'll be able to have very large impact, because we need to remind everyone the carbon impact of software in general is massive. We were blind since very recently, because again, we only talk about the very common, I would say, culpable. But of course, they're important, but digital at large is very important. And now we are gaining this visibility.
Yeah, wonderful. Really good points. And I think one of the points you said early on, I think is really important, which is that we are oftentimes, a lot of what we're talking about is not new knowledge, it's existing knowledge. We're just reformatting it and making sure it's aligned to the right incentives and the right, we can surface those things. One of the things we'll be announcing later on during this session, this decarb session, is a training. So we've got the training, we've got especially got a patterns catalog that's being developed. And a lot of that patterns catalog is not us developing new patterns, it's us pointing to existing patterns that already are available on the internet. So I think that's kind of a very, very important point. So thank you very much, Niels.
If I can just jump on this one, I think
Sure.
it's a very good point. It's something I teach to all the people around me. To improve the situation, we just need to use this type of pattern. And they are existing since forever in one way that will improve what we create by making them more sustainable, potentially less expensive to run, etc. So again, as you described, it's not new knowledge, it's just new usage of the technologies.
Yeah, agree. Thank you. Let's move towards another knowledge question. What I ask is kind of more of a personal question to you, Sanjay, actually. I think it might be quite interesting to know. So in your journey into the space, you've written about green software in the past, and I personally written about green software, and I talk about my journey into understanding, like, the doors opening as the nature of this challenge that we have. So in your journey into space, was there something that really changed, framed how you see sustainability and technology and how they kind of interact?
So multiple things here. One is my own interactions with the CEOs and the study, at a level of technology and sustainability. What I observed, and our studies proved it, is when we integrate our technology strategy with sustainability strategy and business strategy, one can outperform the competition and give better shareholder value, right? So goes to the earlier point, we always knew this, but why are people not acting? People will act when there's something for them. And the whole fact of bringing sustainability technology together, means more profitability as well. So that's one big reason. It also means, what I have observed is reduction in cost, because there is a linkage between lowering emission using optimal levels of hardware and FinOps, right? And the third most revealing factor, I would say, is how serious or severe is this problem. There is very little awareness in people at large. We have always associated digital with clean. We would always advise, stop printing paper and, use digital technologies. the rise of all the entertainment platforms and social media. We are all hooked, but most of us never realized that a lot of those energies is coming from burning fossil fuel, right? And there are projections that our sector, information communication technology sector, will contribute to 14% of greenhouse gas emission by 2040. So it's not trivial. Now, all this, when it comes together, the impact of ICT, the possibility of better profitability, shareholder value, reduced cost, all these are good news. And to me, personally, this is what made me feel that this is a topic worth exploring. The other thing I also found out from my own interactions with number of CEOs is, while they understand this is an important area, many of them still struggle. What should be my technology strategy and investment like? And also a question of affordability of technology. So, which means that there is, in my experience, a need to guide the business at large in this whole space, right?
Mm.
And finally, other interesting observation I had seen was in my early days when I was exploring this topic, it's people would say, I have already moved into the cloud. I have done everything required. There's nothing more to be done. But the very fact that there is so many different pockets where you can create more carbon efficient, carbon aware interventions, right, from your entire software development lifecycle, DevOps, in data, in AI, in the cloud, in the end user devices, bringing circularity concepts, reusing your end user devices where a lot of emission happens. So this is a very, very broad and vast area. It's not as simple as saying, I have moved to the cloud, why do I need to do this? Or I use a lot of SaaS and PaaS, why do I need to do this? So I think in my experience, those were the early objections to this area, but those are changing rapidly thanks to a lot of work we all are trying to do collectively.
Mm. Yeah, definitely a lot of that resonates with me also. And I remember, a lot of stuff in the green space, you tend to have to make a trade-off, or it always feels like it's a trade-off between doing something good versus doing something well. Whereas with green software, the amazing thing is that a piece of software is usually faster, it's usually cheaper, it's usually more reliable, has all these positive traits to it. And that's I think that's one of the attitudes we need to change in the world, is that this is better. We're not proposing you do something worse, we're saying do it better, which I think is thank you for that, Sanjay. That was that was the kind of insight I wanted to see. Let's move back to tech culture. So Ben, you've been one of the people who've driven and changed, or one of the people who've been trying to change the culture of UBS internally. How have you seen, tech culture around sustainability change over the last few years, and where do you see it going in 5 years' time? Where would you like to see UBS in 5 years' time?
Yeah, it's probably no exaggeration to call it a revolution, right? It's over the last 18 to 24 months, say, it's really been quite dramatic. I think we've gone from having isolated pockets of very passionate individuals, really trying hard to make positive change, but struggling, frankly, now coming together and working collectively as a team. And in our case, it sort of coincided with a reaffirmment of the net zero commitments for UBS. So everything we're doing aligns very nicely with the strategic goals of the firm. But yeah, real momentum now. I think one of the challenges is going to be maintaining that and carrying it forward into the future. I think people are bombarded with climate messages these days, and we need to make sure that we're delivering tips and advice and tooling and learning that can actually help them make a real difference, so that they don't just feel kind of overwhelmed and hopeless. But yeah, I think very positive, and I think things look very encouraging for the future. I think the opportunities are quite clear. I think in some ways, if you look at the challenges we've faced moving to petrol cars or moving away from coal-powered power stations, I think in the case of tech, once you crack that initial, and we talked about it a bit earlier, that sort of that light bulb moment where you realize, hang on a second, as an IT professional, my impact at work is probably far greater than my impact at home, right? And for me, that was a real revelation. You know, it was like, I'm running 100 servers at work. Why am I worried about my TV at home? You know, it doesn't compare. It's not even on the same scale. So yeah, I think once you can crack that, then I think the opportunities to actually make change are vast. I think there's a lot of potential, and we've had some early success with various initiatives at UBS, and I know other companies have too. So a lot of hope and positivity for the future. I think frankly, we're not starting from a great place. You know, like we said earlier, awareness historically has been very low. It's not something that you typically consider when you're designing an application, but there are signs now that is starting to change through education and the introduction of good principles and good strategies. So yeah, I think feeling quite confident that you know, we're on the right track. Wonderful, yeah.
And I think that something you said earlier on, again, that resonated with me, is like I feel that we're a solution. I remember once speaking at a conference earlier this year, and after the conference, somebody came up to me and said, thank you for that. You're the first person at this conference who actually spoke about a solution. Everybody's telling me how bad everything is going really fast. And that's one of the things I'm really proud of what we do in the foundation, is that we're giving people solutions. And there's a lot of people out there that just, they want to do it. They're empowered to do it, but they just want to know what to do. So yeah, I really feel that as well. So thank you, everyone. That was a really interesting panel. Thank you for all your insights and your advice and all your continued support in the foundation. Hopefully we'll have many more years of green software events in the future to discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As highlighted by the panelists just a moment ago, just measuring the carbon intensity of software is difficult. How to measure it? And so we're really excited to announce the release of the Software Carbon Intensity Specification, and which tells practitioners how to measure the carbon intensity of the software that they're producing. On the next slide, I'm going to do a quick dive into what this specification is. And as measuring emissions of software is a pain point for a lot of members of the Green Software Foundation, the foundation gathered a group of software builders and practitioners to really think about how to develop a specification, how to measure the emissions of software. And we kind of came up with this approach that captures a lot of the different areas that software touches, including the operational emissions and the embodied emissions of the hardware that software runs on. We released the kind of alpha version of the specification at the previous COP. And so we're really excited to release this new version that we've been honing over the past year. We have a group of very dedicated practitioners that meet once a week to kind of talk through the specification, write it. Please join us if you're interested in doing that. We're always looking for additional feedback and insight on the specification. And so we're really looking at how does software create emissions, and then tying that back to like the functional unit of that software. How does that software scale? For example, is it per device or per browser? A streaming service might say, how much carbon is emitted per minute of streamed video? Or a cloud provider, how much carbon per stored gigabytes? You can start to see, as software is deployed on hardware, where does that carbon come from and how does it grow as your software grows? And so we look at the total carbon released over that functional unit, and that total carbon consists of both the operational carbon. So when that software is running, it's running on hardware. That hardware requires electricity and that emits emissions. And then we're also looking at the embodied emissions, or the emissions that it took to manufacture, transport, and all the emissions that go into that hardware that the software runs on. And so we're looking at kind of the full range of emissions caused by that hardware. And we really think that this approach is applicable to kind of any type of application, whether that's, console games, cloud applications, mobile applications, web applications, IoT, even software languages, potentially operating systems. So you can start to see that this can spread into many different areas of software development. And so we can really begin to measure the software intensity of different approaches. Sorry, I'm having a quick second here. So one of the things we're excited to do is start thinking about how practitioners can begin to use this and make it actionable to actually make choices about the emissions of software. So we really are looking at this as a specification that says, okay, I have choices in front of me. How can I actually compare different options and select a lower carbon solution and really bring those actions to developers and the people who are making day-to-day decisions about software. And so we're really excited to kind of bring this into the world, help practitioners begin to use it to make more carbon efficient software, and then modify it and update it as we learn more about how practitioners actually begin to use it. Excellent. So kind of transitioning a little bit, I would also like to announce the next hackathon winner. So on the next slide, I have the honor on behalf of the Green Software Foundation of announcing the first hackathon minor category prize winner for most innovative is sustainable UI. And we'll be running a quick video here. Right.
Hey, Samuel here. I'm thrilled about kickstarting Sustainable UI during Carbon Hack 22. Initially, we thought that building a library that offers a set of ready-to-use UI components, but with carbon awareness built in, would be a great first step on the way towards building carbon-aware UIs in general. After we had started thinking a little more outside of the box, it became apparent that we didn't want to get locked into any specific UI framework right in the beginning, while laying down the foundation for such a broad concept. We had identified that first problem developers face is not about building the components as such, rather about implementing the logic that sits beneath at a lower level, which is framework independent, where the key green mold design principles are at the core. Realizing this, our problem definition had shifted to building a solution that would provide primitives as a solid base ground for building any collection of carbon-aware components. We are coming today with our proposal for building headless libraries that are suited for different UI frameworks. These libraries aim at freeing the developers to focus on building their own carbon-aware variants of components. There is no need for them to come up with the universal primitives for building carbon-aware UIs anymore. We had built the demo app that uses an early version of the React Headless library, which provides primitives that we had defined into any React application. This way, carbon awareness primitives are brought into our app in minutes. With the demo app, we demonstrate the real-world usage of the library using the carbon-aware API. Before moving forward, we want to stabilize the React Headless library and adapt it for other popular frameworks later on. Once that's done, we are planning to build a standalone UI library with carbon-aware UI components that are built on the top of the primitives. Hope this has uncovered the main reasons for our excitement about the project. If you are interested, make sure to have a look at the text speech for more details. Thank you.
We're really excited. We're really excited to see these tools being built into different processes. I also have the honor of announcing the most polished Hackathon Prize minor category winner is Green Courier.
Hi, my name is Mohak Chadda, and this is our project for the Carbon Hack 2022 called Green Courier. Green Courier targets a new cloud computing paradigm called serverless computing, aka function as a service, in which users are only responsible for writing small pieces of code called functions, while all infrastructure management is handled by the cloud service provider. Examples of fast platforms include AWS Lambda, IBM Cloud Functions, and Scaleway Functions. Typically, these cloud providers see around 1.1 billion function invocations per day. These functions are executed on geographically distributed data centers, which are forecasted to consume 8 to 13% of the world's electricity by 2030. Towards sustainable serverless computing, we propose Green Courier. Green Courier optimizes the scheduling of serverless functions across geo-distributed cloud clusters. It builds on Kubernetes, which is the de facto platform for container orchestration, and Knative, which is an enterprise-level platform for building serverless applications. Using Green Courier is simple. In the first step, the user writes function code in programming languages such as C++, Java, Node.js, or Go, and deploys and invokes them on a management cluster. Following this, Green Courier obtains information from the Carbon SDK about the most carbon efficient region and schedules the function there. Finally, the function is executed in the selected region in the previous step. Our initial experimental results for 5 different types of functions show that Green Courier performs 60% better than stock Knative for placing functions in regions with high carbon efficiency. Moreover, for the 5 different types of functions, Green Courier is 40% more carbon efficient than Knative. In the future, we want to improve the scalability of Green Courier and move towards a disaggregated control plane, add support for more carbon data sources, and support efficient carbon-aware scheduling of stateful serverless functions. Thank you.
We're really excited to see this tooling built directly into some of the utilities that many people use to orchestrate their different containers. So we're super excited to see this work and hope it continues. Congratulations to both these winners. Great projects. Next up, we have another green software panel hosted by Tammy, who's co-chair of the GSF Community Working Group.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm absolutely giddy to host this panel on the topic of green software, where we have 3 very distinguished members of the Green Software Foundation. So we have Scott Chamberlain from Intel, we have Lisa McNally from ThoughtWorks, and we have Santiago Fonterosa. How bad did I butcher your last name?
Really great.
Wow. From Globant. So appreciate you all being here to talk about the Green Software Foundation and the mission of building a trusted ecosystem of people, standards, toolings, and best practice. And we're here to talk about those things. And we're going to dive into a little bit of the tech culture, knowledge, and tooling. So let's get started. All right, well, this was something that I'm particularly interested in, and it's pertaining to tech culture, right? So how have you seen the tech culture around sustainability change over the last few years? And where do you see it in 5 years? Who wants to start?
I can jump in there, I think it's probably clear with most of our panelists that we've probably seen it go from little to nothing to pretty pervasive. And the one data point that I was really just blown away by was I was reviewing the different talks at the OCP summit that's happening. I think it's this week. And it's really data center focused. It's a little bit has a, hardware focused, but I would say a 1/5 of the talks had some sustainability aspect with them. And that's something you would not have seen, 3 or 4 years ago. So at least for that audience, I think the understanding that's an important thing to talk about in those communities is really relevant right now. And where are we going to be 5 years from now? I think we will definitely have a combination of it being super embedded into the daily practices, which, I think we're at the bleeding edge of that right now. And from there, we'll see, bleeding edge research, as well as, a set of expectations, both culturally, like you mentioned, as well as regulatory, about how we, develop software that consumes or emits large amount of carbon dioxide. So,
yeah, I've seen that too, just in the last, I'd say 2 years of my being in this space, just in 2 years, seeing the change. And I know that just in any industry, not just the tech sector, but also in the tech sector, cost and performance tend to be the big drivers around why we go to conferences, why we read articles. It's always looking at ways to improve cost and performance. And perhaps I'm just seeing this through the biased lens because I approach my work from the sustainability side, but I truly have been seeing more of the sustainability piece being brought into those discussions and having conferences and media, points of media really focused on sustainability being that primary driver from the perspective that sustainability and profit aren't necessarily in conflict with one another, which years ago that tended to be you were either on one side or the other of that spectrum, and it felt more there was more of this kind of like throwing meat at one another on both sides of the spectrum, saying no, it's profit, no, it's sustainability, and now it's kind of like, those actually could go very well together. Now, of course, you need the tools, you need the standards, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit about that in order to help them be more complementary, but I'm not seeing as much resistance towards those two kind of areas of business being in conflict with one another.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I see that too, and yeah, I absolutely applaud that. Santiago, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just to add that, as Scott was mentioned, and Lisa, there's no longer a conflict between sustainability and business. And in my personal opinion, what I'm seeing going forward is that nowadays, no one questions the security or quality be part of the development process. And I envision that in the near future, sustainability will also be that part. And no one is going to question that. So it will be like at the core of the business when you work on software or any digital solution. So when we can say that the next evolution of the digital transformation will be a sustainable digital transformation.
Yeah, I want to say it's gone beyond from viewed as a potential conflict to an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
We have RFPs, we have specifications, we have a lot of things where it's you must do X, Y, and Z if we're even going to consider your solution. It's starting at open data and carbon footprint data, but it's I think over the next few years it's going to extend way beyond that as we develop these standards and the expectations of what is possible.
So in your journey into this space, what is something that you learned that really changed or framed how you see sustainability and technology?
Say for me, I have been deep in technology for almost 15 years, right? But for me, it was like reshape everything that have been done in the past and have a new lens. So it gives me a new complete perspective, and it make me rethink about some problems that I have solved in the past, some applications, some solutions, even some recommendations I have been given to clients. And it's a whole new way of thinking about the problems we need to solve. I will think about technology as a tool to solve problems. And now it's like you add this new, let's say, layers complexity. So it brings you to the next level. And for me, it was like a new challenge. We need to challenge this. And I'm not talking just about, it's important in the personal level for the commitment to the environment, but also from the professional point of view. So nowadays, it's, let's say, push the boundaries on how we do things. And that for me was a big change on my career.
Yeah, for me personally, I was trying to learn more about sustainability in my day-to-day life, right? And doing all the things that I thought that you should do with recycle and reuse and, eliminate one and dones, and working in technology, I started to look inside my job. And for me, the biggest thing that kind of framed this for me was coming across those principles, right? I get asked all the time, well, what is green software really? And what does that mean, right? and just those early principles and being able to learn about them was really a aha moment for me.
Yeah, totally. The same happened to me. I came across that and it was aha moment.
Yeah, I mean, and someone coming from the transportation sector and really starting her career, almost 20 years ago so in the transportation sector, what we really focused on as a consultant, what I brought our clients was this idea of transportation demand management. What are the ways that you can change your behavior and be less dependent on single occupancy vehicle, VMT, vehicles miles traveled, all of this. It's all about the behavior change and the awareness, but also shifting to a different use. So we called that, transportation demand management or demand management. And as I started learning about green software, and it seemed a little like nebulous to me at first, and I really started looking at it, it's also about demand shaping. We can use technology to shape our own demand in usage of the technology itself. And in fact, because we only continue to become more dependent on technology, for me, I'm like, transportation sector, huge area of emissions, but you know what? The tech sector is now that area, and this is really where we should be focused. We can bring a lot of those other principles here, but we've got, the transportation sector is well on its way with the electric vehicles. There's obviously things we need to do there, but wow, there's so much opportunity for us in this space, and that demand shaping, the carbon aware, the carbon efficiency, all of that type of work actually will have a significant impact, because when we look at the overall impact that tech is having today, it's not insignificant. It's on par with the aviation industry globally. So I'm really excited about that. And then it all clicked into place like, yeah, that's what that means. It means that it's about the electricity usage. It's a one-for-one connection there. And it just wasn't clear to me at first. And I think that's super important for us to continue to bring that awareness, that it's not as mysterious. Of course, there's a lot of work to be done, but there is a direct throughput that we can continue to educate others on.
I'll build on what Lisa was saying about, I kind of heard her like alluding to kind of systems thinking, right? And I think one of the most profound learnings that I had while being on this journey is the understanding the interplay between what we're doing, say on the demand shaping side or on the how technology uses energy side, and how that has the potential to interact with how the grid is built out and how you get better utilization from renewable energy and minimize utilization from coal and dirtier fossil fuels. And that interplay is really interesting, and thinking about it as a system. And then you can even add another layer of complexity in that, thinking the embodied carbon aspects of all the technology you're using and the interplay with that. And you end up having to approach this problem from the point of view of a large scale, like global optimization problem, where the goal is lowering the amount of CO2 in aggregate, but sometimes the interplay between lowering in one place and the impact of that is not necessarily always obvious. And so I think just approaching my work from that point of view is that there's a lot of ways of making impact, software being where we're all having, putting a lot of our mind in, but there's a lot of other things that we cannot ignore that have positive or negative impacts too, and we have to think about it as a whole system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What kind of tooling would you guys love to see in 5 years that maybe doesn't exist today? If you could put your future hats on for a second, where would you see that going?
I would say that nowadays we are seeing a lot of tools that allow us to be more productive, like for example, GitHub Copilot. And I would like to see something around that, something that allows or give us more information that allows us to make better decisions and incorporate sustainability as one of the KPIs, as many ones. For example, I believe that the SDK, Carbon Aware SDK, that have been generated is a great example of a tool that allows us to make decisions. And I think that in the future, we need to have more and more tools that allow us to have that information in real time and make decisions, or even incorporate it, that we don't have to worry about it. So when I producing some piece of software, let's say the compiler, we take that into account and will produce the most optimal code, but at the same time will be the sustainable way of use the energy that is going to be consumed.
Yeah,
Right.
extending on that, like, having an SDK is totally step one. If building out 5 years from now, what I would love to see is having it more integrated into the programming languages themselves, into, say, like contracts that you would build your, pieces of your application around. Say I have I'm writing, an asynchronous application, and I want to kick off a process that says, hey, this process, I don't have a latency requirement, it can be carbon aware. And then all I have to do is tag it in my programming language, and then everything else is handled for me. So as a developer, I don't necessarily need to be at that time like a domain expert on how the energy grid works, which somewhat you have to do today to do this right. But in the future, I want to just be able to know these are the right concepts, and if they are applicable in these, problem spaces, and everything, all the really good logic is built into the languages, built into the frameworks, and we have a very mature ecosystem there that makes doing this at scale really easy.
Yeah.
That's
It's so wide open right now. There's just, so much potential out there, and so many different ways that I can definitely see us moving this and helping developers make better decisions for sure.
Yeah, and just to add on that too, I mean, not just developers, if I were to just think really big in 5 years' time, I would love for just the average consumer to have some ability to get that kind of immediate dashboard look into their energy consumption on their, say, on their homepage or something, kind of like the Prius dashboard that, to what Scott just said, like, you don't need to be a domain expert to understand how an engine works or how a Prius battery works or any of that. You just get that kind of output, just any lay person can see it and kind of understand it. Kind of, sometimes I know there's a gamification component of it where you're always trying to optimize to make sure you're getting the most efficient usage, but that could be kind of cool too, to have everyone have this be kind of like business as usual norm for any consumer. Like we have a watch, we have a watch on, we have our clock, and we also have right below it kind of the carbon intensity associated with maybe your computer usage, but also other things in your home that are all kind of being used to pull energy off the grid.
Absolutely. Okay, I know we talked a little bit about the Carbon Aware SDK, and we kind of elaborated on it, but any last thoughts about how you can see organizations leveraging the SDK, and just for clarity for those that don't know, it's the Carbon Aware SDK was just released by the Green Software Foundation, and it's a way of pulling grid data to help with those decisions. So any other ways that you guys could see the SDK assisting your companies?
I think it's somewhat related to what I was just mentioning, but I think there's this consumer amplification component. So you have the companies themselves, maybe the tech companies, doing this work internally so they can meet their own sustainability goals. But then you also have the potential and promise of them taking a lot of these learnings and applying it to the products and services that they're providing their customers. So you're really kind of you're amplifying kind of the awareness piece of it, and customers, like I was talking about, having some dashboard. You can put that on appliances and other things to help the customers then get more, become more mindful about the ways that their appliances or other things are consuming energy, both based on time and location. So I think there's a lot of promise there too, in addition to everything else we've been talking about here in terms of the tech companies using this themselves.
I think what we're seeing, at least with carbon awareness, right, we're seeing the first few applications of it outside of charging. And, I think bringing it into, let's say, Intel in my case, or, in other large organizations, and this is exactly what we're also seeing with the hackathon, is that this is a concept connecting how a piece of code behaves with the behavior of the energy grid that I think unlocks a huge amount of creativity for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so, at least bringing in Intel, what we anticipate is that there will be new use cases we never thought about before. There will be high energy, and CO2 impact opportunities we'll identify when we start to think about this, because like I mentioned before, most software developers are not familiar with how the energy grid works, though we are seeing a lot of interest in that. And once you start, and the Carbon SDK kind of makes that more approachable, and you unlock that creativity once you connect the dots for people. As they're doing this, they realize, hey, I might not only be optimizing for performance, latency, reliability, some of the things we are used to optimizing for, but I can also optimize for carbon, and maybe that's the appropriate thing for my software application. And we're going to see massive amounts of new innovation in this space, I believe, in the coming years as organizations adopt it. And I think that's the value of the SDK, is making it easier to adopt. You don't have to roll your own. You don't have to, provide that intermediate, logic, which you'd had to prior to this.
It's starting to build the easy button, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you guys today. Hopefully my dog wasn't too much a distraction. I don't know if you even heard him, but they went off a few times during the course. But appreciate the wonderful conversation about green software. I could talk all day about this. And I definitely appreciate what the foundation is doing with building, the trusted ecosystem, right, of people. And we've got some great people in the foundation, great companies that are trying to make a difference, creating those standards, building the tooling, and all in all, sharing of those best practices to advance the idea of green software. And I'm very excited about that topic, and I definitely appreciate all the great minds in the panel today. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tammy and the panelists, for such an insightful discussion. I specifically resonated with the discussion you guys had on the tech trend, where we're now seeing more and more dots being connected between other software disciplines, such as performance or cost with sustainability. And to quote Scott, sustainability in tech has gone from potential conflict to an expectation. And I also echo the panelists. I also had a aha moment when I first discovered the principle of green software a couple of years ago, while I was looking up tricks to be more eco-friendly during my day-to-day lives, and what adventurous ride it has been since then. And this nicely leads me to the following announcement the Green Software Foundation and I would like to share with you. So hello everyone, my name is Sarah Sue. I'm the chair for the Principles Project with the Green Software Foundation, and I'm here today to share what we have been up to in the past year. So why is sustainability in tech such a hot topic right now? It's not just because the cloud has a bigger carbon footprint than the airline industry, nor is because software is only just going to get more integrated with our society, but we tech workers should be part of the climate solution and use our skills to accelerate climate actions. We at the Green Software Foundation believe that with a standardized credential, we tech workers can be equipped with appropriate knowledge and the right technical skills to kickstart our green software journeys. And this credential can also help you or your company to find the right talent to build green software. So we're launching the Green Software for Practitioner course with the Linux Foundation. It's free. Yes, you heard that right. The course is a free online educational material for anyone in tech to utilize. That includes designers, testers, developers, product or project managers, so on. With this training material, we can make sure the software we build is more sustainable, and we can also kickstart a career in green software. The course itself is split into different modules, where each module reflects one principle of the latest iteration of the principles of green software. At the end of each module, there's a knowledge check for you to ensure you have gained the correct understanding before you move on to the next module. And right at the end of the course, there's a final multiple choice exams. And if you pass, which I'm sure you will pass, you will receive a certification of completion from the Linux Foundation. As mentioned, if you're interested in a career in green software, we strongly encourage you to enroll in this course. Or if you would like to hire green software talent, you can use this course as a method of evaluation to make sure the people you want to hire meet a minimum and consistent level of understanding. So, what makes software green? We define green software as software that emits the least amount of greenhouse gases, aka carbon, possible. There are three activities that can make that happen. Firstly, we can be efficient with energy. Secondly, we can be efficient with hardware. Or finally, we can make our software carbon aware. Those activities make software green because they can help us reduce the carbon emissions of our software. This is because we can sort of think of energy and electricity as a proxy for carbon, and being efficient with one of them or both of them will lead us to be efficient with carbon. The latest iteration of the principle of green software has 6 principles, and they form a core set of competencies needed to define, build, and run green software. Basically, there are a set of guidelines on how to do things green, and they also further explain the 3 activities that we just talked about. With this iteration of principle of green software, we also included topics such as how do the different mechanisms of carbon reduction means, and what the different climate jargons you've been hearing mean. And finally, we included a quick summary of the Software Carbon Intensity Specifications. As Henry mentioned earlier, ACI specification is a methodology for us to score our software's carbon emissions. Since the revision of the principles was completed, we've been extending the project scope to include something called patterns and practices. So principles, patterns, and practices. Again, we define the principle of green software as a baseline knowledge needed to define, build, and run green software. But how do you actually apply those principles? What are actionable items people can immediately apply to their software? Those questions are asked every single time any one of us brings up the principle of green software. And that's where patterns come in. Now I'll hand over the mic to Bill so he can tell you more about the Patterns project. And don't forget, by a click of the button, you can start your journey in green software.
Thank you, Sarah. So I am Bill Johnson from Microsoft, and I'm going to be talking to you about patterns and green software patterns. So Sarah just took us through the principles and the concepts there. One of the graphics she was showing right at the end is this triangle here that we've created to help visualize what this really means. So the 6 principles of green software that Sarah laid out and the certification is available for, they feed into both patterns and practices. Now, what that means is, how do you apply these principles into your day-to-day job? So we have defined 2 different ways to do that. One is the patterns approach, which is a vendor agnostic or a more general application of a principle. And the other is the practice, which is a very specific or vendor specific application of a principle. Today, we're announcing the patterns section of this with 40 different patterns that we've already defined from these principles. This will continue to grow over time, and we'll add more and more. We're very excited to start with these 40 today. So what is a pattern? Let's dive a little bit deeper into that. A pattern consists of a bunch of information that we either provide for you from the foundation, but we also are seeking for you to participate and join as well. So the first section here is essentially what we're calling metadata. And so this is a little bit of categorization and definition of the pattern itself. But the real information impact comes from the content section here. So we've aligned all of the patterns to have a very actionable title to them. So it's very clear on what you're taking an action on in your system and how it's being impacted. Providing a quick description of what the problem is, how this pattern solves it, the impact to that SCI score or the SCI equation that you've defined, and then some other information around some assumptions, considerations that may come along with this. Knowing that this information is spread all across the web already, this patterns project here is a way for us to combine it into one spot. So it's very easy for you to discover and provide your own information. And so this references section at the end there is to help us connect these different systems across the web. So if you find a pattern that you've seen defined in maybe another source or another system or internally within your own company or your own efforts, bring them in and properly reference it back, properly connect it back to that original source. In order to submit on the patterns site here, patterns.greensoftware.org, at the top, there's a button here to add or edit your own pattern. Anybody is able to do this. There's two different ways. If you just have an idea and a thought, this will take you to a link on the patterns site here that will allow you to submit a GitHub issue. So all of our work is open source. All of our work is being done in the open on GitHub in this repo. By submitting an issue, this starts a discussion. This starts a conversation within the organization and within other subject matter experts within this working group. If through that discussion and conversation, we find that this is a great opportunity for a new pattern, we can transition that into an actual submission for the pattern, which again goes on the GitHub repository. There's a code change. There's a template to follow, which is all the details I just described before. Once those are submitted in, we start a review process, and that will go through subject matter experts that will come in and help validate and check some of the assumptions that have been made, help check some of the math and some of the details within the pattern. If that gets approved and we successfully make our way through, your pattern will start to show up on this website. So you can see in our catalog on the left side here, I said we have 40 different patterns today. Those are spread across 3 different categories of cloud, artificial intelligence, and the web. All of these patterns are accessible, are easy to read, to view, and understand and apply towards your system. So I encourage you to come to the website here and check out the patterns that we have already and submit your own. We have much more to come. This is just the start. We're just getting started. So please come join and submit your own pattern. And now I have the honor of announcing another hackathon winner. And so for the hackathon winner for the most insightful project goes to the Carbon Optimized Process Scheduler. So here's a quick video from them with some details.
Hi, I'm Kamlesh, and this is our project Carbon Optimized Process Scheduler. The problem we are trying to solve is that in the industrial and the software workloads, frequently the processes are scheduled based on gut feeling or the past experience. We are trying to bring in that carbon information to it and optimizer to have an optimal distribution of processes to reduce the carbon emission. Here are the 2 scenarios from industry which we have used. The solution which we have built is created an API service with a UI on top to allow scheduling the jobs and goal to minimize the carbon emission. We have used mixed integer linear programming model with an open solver to solve it, and it is very very easy for any end user to use it. Here's the demo of our service where you can see that it's very easy to give the windows. You can add the processes, you can add the constraints, and then in the end, when you press the optimize button, you get different optimization methods which are available to decide which one you want to choose on and how you want to schedule the processes. About the impact of the processes, there's this is the example from the process high energy industry where we have a potential of up to 2 million tons of carbon CO2 emission reduction per year. There's another example which we have here of a high reach, which is in the IT industry or in the software, where up to 300,000 tons potential CO2 reduction is possible. The vision of our project is that we want to reduce the CO2 emission by around 5 million tons per year by 2025. And the next steps we want to add is the grid prices, internal local flows of energy, like having energy production internally, offline availability of application, and connectivity to different softwares. This is all for our demo. Thank you for watching.
That was really cool. So we have one more category to announce here before the announcement at the end of the top three. And this category is for most actionable hackathon project. And this prize goes to the hedge.earth team. Here's a quick video on this project.
Problem: API requests contribute to 83% of web carbon emissions. Solution: maximize the amount of clean energy used to fulfill API requests. To this end, we have built a reverse proxy to bounce traffic between data centers. A demonstration of this as follows. We'll make an API request, wait for the response. Once the response is received, can view in the CloudWatch logs a list of each region and their intensity, as well as the feedback of which region was picked, and if whether it had the lowest carbon intensity. In this case it did. And if we had used a region that did not have the absolute lowest, it would provide feedback about what region we could have used, as well as the amount of carbon we could have saved had we been using that region. We have also built this as a JavaScript package that can be used to circumvent the proxy completely and also register your own services. This is perfect for WebSockets and event-driven applications specifically. Lastly, we have built a daily dose global energy carbon intensity report that can be used to view the intensity levels of grids around the world. Future plans for this project are to add electricity usage and carbon emission tracking and monitoring, create a website to submit services via a form, track and monitor emissions globally per org, per service, and per region, and lastly, to begin to integrate with other well-known ecosystems such as Postman, Serverless Framework, Nginx, and Hub proxies for APIs. That has been a brief introduction of Hedge, the reverse proxy rewriting the definition to conclude maximum clean energy use.
All right, super cool. And congratulations to all 4 of these minor category winners. Really, really cool stuff. And you should be really proud of the work that's come in. I'm super excited to see these become real projects and real things. So now I get to hand this over to our next panel, which is being led by Anne Curry, who's from the Green Software Foundation's Community Working Group. Over to Anne.
Welcome to the third discussion panel accompanying the hackathon, the SDK, the Green Software Foundation SDK. So this is climate aware, carbon aware, and carbon efficiency and measurement SDK hackathon. And to discuss the hackathon itself and what our aims are and where we feel that the GSF is going with all of this, I've got 3 great guests today. I've got Ali from Goldman Sachs, Colin from VMware, and Chris from Avanade. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves now. They all represent sponsors of the hackathon, and I think that we can all agree that the prize is quite revolutionary. I mean, it is a shed load of cash for which we can thoroughly thank the sponsors, and it'll be interesting. It'll be absolutely fascinating to see where this goes as a result of such a large pot of cash to be won from this hackathon, because it's a business changing. For a startup, it is startup seed money. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes out of this hackathon. And I think I've never seen anything like it. My jaw dropped when I heard how much the the funding actually was associated with this. So, thanks again to our sponsors for handing over a large chunk of money. We'll get all three of them to introduce themselves now. So, Ali, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and thank you, Anne, for moderating this important discussion. You know, as you mentioned, we're also excited to be a part of this, and Goldman Sachs is especially excited to be a part of the hackathon. So thanks for putting this together. As Anne said, I'm Ali Vaughn from Goldman Sachs. I work in what we call core engineering, which is the shared technology solutions for the firm, where I run product management and privacy engineering and cloud FinOps. So a lot of different components, and also serve as the managing director advisor to the green software engineering team at Goldman.
So, Colleen?
Yeah, great. I'm also very excited about the hackathon and so thrilled that VMware was able to sponsor this. And I've just been bragging to everybody that we're involved. My name is Colleen Josephson. I'm a research scientist at VMware. My background is in wireless communications and sensing, but since starting at VMware, I've been doing a lot of work in the sustainability space, particularly as it pertains to telecommunications. And I also happen to be the org lead for VMware's involvement in the Green Software Foundation.
Excellent. So, and last but not least, Chris.
Hey, Anne. Good to chat with you again. I am very sad that you yourself are not part of the panel, but I'm glad you're moderating, even if we won't have as many arguments as we've had in the past. So yeah, I'm from Avanade. I'm our head of open technologies and open source here. Avanade's committed to being a responsible business, but I'm also personally excited to get the chance to be the open source working group chair and help to build and steward all the great tools the foundation is making. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. That's good. So, one thing so I've got a huge list of questions that to ask everybody, which we will barely scratch the surface of, is my suspicion on this. But I'm actually going to go slightly off the questions for the first one and say, you know, Green Software Foundation, we're a very new foundation. I don't think we have a really clear what it is that we want to achieve with this hackathon. I think we want to kind of see what comes out of it. Because, as I say, it is an extraordinarily large amount of money. But what would you, in your dreams, what would you like to see happen as a result of this? Let's start. Let's do reverse order this time, Chris.
So this is an odd one. If you had asked me a year ago what I'd want to have seen, it would probably be the realization that you can actually green your software now with the techniques and tools that we have. I think today, I'd probably want people to know that you don't have to be a software engineer to take part. And I'm hoping we will see designers, business analysts, even lawyers and others actually aware that everyone can be part of the difference.
That's great. So reversing order again, Colleen.
Yeah, so I was excited to see the SCI released the alpha and versions. And I used to do a lot of software engineering. Now I have less and less time that I spend in front of the computer. So I haven't had any time to really sit down and dig through what's going on there. So I'd be really excited to see are some of the applications that come out of this that really, I'm a very application driven person for learning. And I think that some of these projects are going to be really helpful to seed ideas for others. Just like, you know, a tutorial for how to use the SCI built by all the different participants to really help it catch on and, you know, make it easier for people everywhere to start to use it within their companies, within their research, you know, kind of wherever it might happen to fit.
Yeah, and I would add on to, you know, what Chris and Colleen have said, and just echo that, you know, this is a hard problem. Sustainability in software is a hard problem, and developers love hard problems. And so bringing this many developers to a problem and giving them the tools through the SCI or other tools, like what better way can we come about with coming up with some real solutions and bringing awareness to the problem and to potential solutions, I think is really, really powerful, and the beginning, hopefully, of a much broader discussion with a lot of large organizations like the three represented on this call today. And then I would just respond to Chris by saying, you know, I have a legal background, so lawyers are already here and talking about it.
That's interesting. the judges must have a really difficult time on this, because it's not normally at a hackathon you're just judging the implementation that's in front of you. Is it good, is it bad, whatever. But in this case, I would imagine there's an awful lot of, well, what would you do with the money as a result of winning it? Because we want it to go to further the cause. So they will have a really. Is anybody here on the judging panel? I don't think we are we? No. So no.
Yeah,
you are.
I am. I haven't yet got to the point of getting the score sheet and looking through, but I am very excited. I've been seeing the project numbers ticking up, and it's going to be quite a mammoth task.
Yeah, I don't envy you. It's because it's really quite a tough decision compared to because you do have loads of things to balance up.
Yeah, and the criteria is very broad ranging as well across a number of different aspects.
Yeah, that's which I guess makes sense, but yeah, then it just makes it incredibly difficult to because it's quite a large panel of judges, isn't it, that you have to wrangle together to come up with a conclusion.
I'm glad I'm not doing the wrangling either. I'm one of the wrangled. So
I don't know who's doing the wrangling. I assume our chair is doing that.
I also think it's a great opportunity to work with a mentor. Like the mentors that I've seen on the list that are being assigned to the teams is just a wonderful opportunity just to learn from each other and other perspectives and backgrounds. It's the judges have a tough time, but I think everyone will get a great opportunity to learn something new and think about something in a new way, which is really exciting.
That is exciting. Yeah.
And VMware is our director of sustainable innovation, and in her title, just so perfect compared to research scientist. She's got so much expertise. She's been in the field forever, so I think she's really perfect for the role. I work with her closely. She's an excellent person.
I have to say, I've been very impressed looking at the Discord by the number of people who aren't judges or mentors, but just volunteers hopping on, answering questions, quite late in the evening sometimes in their time, just helping out other people and not taking part in the hackathon. On the one hand, I'm like, great. On the other hand, I'm like, get some of the money.
Yes. Yeah, but don't go on a foreign holiday with it. Use it to further the cause. But I don't know. Wrong, isn't it? You can go on a sustainability fact-finding mission to Cuba or something like that. That'd be fine as long as you sail there under your own steam. But no, actually, oddly enough, I don't think that eschewing all modern technology is one of the things that I want people to take away from this. We all live in the world. We need to find a way of travel, individual. Turning your lights on, that's all just part of life, and it isn't really where your key win is here. We need to make more high level changes. How do we get people to adopt carbon pricing and things like that, rather than you should get an air fryer or something. It's distraction greenwashing, which we all need to avoid. So sorry, I'm going terribly off the questions here, and I will actually go back to the questions that we have for the thing, and this may be the only question we get to answer because it's a big question, which is, so how have the question I'm going to put to all of you is, how have you seen tech culture change in the past 5 years with respect to sustainability, and how do you expect or want to see it change in the next 5 years? So I will reverse the order again and go back to Ali. Do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's one of the things that makes working in tech so exciting, is that the culture is constantly changing. And what I've seen in the last even couple of years in my role at Goldman is the grassroots movement, the focus of developers and non-developer technical people who really care about this, and really, like, this is a foundational component to them and how they approach whatever problem or whatever products they work on. And so when we're thinking about attracting and retaining great technical talent, this is a key thing that the firm has to be focused on investing in, bringing to the top level of our own priorities in order just to have the best in class talent pool. And I would go beyond that to also say, I think a lot of things, we talked about this before we started the discussion. I've seen a lot of focus from the cost angle, right? So organizations have been very focused on reducing spend in energy consumption and inefficient systems running, or hardware, or end of life hardware that needs to be replaced just to save money or security or things like that. But now sustainability is a huge part of that discussion, and people are also saying, like, what is the carbon footprint of the work that we're doing, the products that we're building, and our clients are asking about it as well. And so I think just the awareness, that people want to know the answer, people want to ensure that they're doing no harm to the environment through the technical processes that we're running, are what will drive the change that we all want to see and be a part of. And so now it's about harnessing all of that focus and excitement, giving developers the tools they need to go solve these problems, and then starting to report it and hold each other accountable. I think actually measuring it, reporting on it, and improving it is where we really just start to see it change actually take place.
No, that's good. Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. The change in the past 5 years from what the hell are you talking about? This doesn't fit at a tech conference to, oh, we should have a keynote on sustainability is astonishing. So, Colleen, what's your thinking?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with your last comment. We've seen enormous changes. It's gone from something that's on the fringes to being much, much more mainstream. At the last time I was invited to speak somewhere, it was on sustainability. And I had to joke that it's become kind of the topic of the year, which is fabulous in my opinion. When I think back to when I went to my first few years of college, the topic of sustainability in what we were studying didn't really ever come up. We would talk about big O and little o, and maybe if you were specifically in the embedded space, power consumption would be discussed. So in short, a lot of us engineers were graduating with a lack of awareness. And it's really finally starting to change. A lot of people are learning right now about how sustainability ties into ICT. And I see a lot of passion from people who are kind of realizing this connection and very enthusiastic about doing their part. And as Ali said, kind of one of the challenges right now is struggling to figure out how you actually give the people who are so passionate about solving these problems the tools to get it done. And that's one of the things that excites me really a lot about the Green Software Foundation and this hackathon in particular.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're totally right there. Chris, what are your thoughts?
So Colleen talks about being asked to speak on sustainability, and Ali talks about kind of the grassroots swelling at Goldman Sachs. I think I've seen a similar change, but for me, it's a few years ago, the focus on sustainability was what happened outside of you. So upstream of you, someone bought some devices and they had to make sure they were responsibly sourced, knew where the minerals had come from. And then downstream of you, you had a thought on how would you recycle the items that you had, the data centers, the laptops, the desktops, but you didn't really care about what you did. You would download a package, you would use it, you would compile it. You might optimize code because it wasn't running efficiently, but not because you cared about the energy usage. So I think that it's gone from how do I let someone else make my hardware sustainable for me to actually, no, I can make a difference. What I do matters. And moving on from carbon, it's what water was used in the factories to create these products, what microplastics are being emitted. Do I even need to put kind of sheeting on my racks? And I think that awareness has scared people, but also changed people's mindsets to make them really positive about the fact they can have an individual change. And I think in a few years' time, I would like to see the tech culture be one from this is another plus one, something I have to think about, to it's just something else I monitor. It's easy to do. It doesn't scare me. And I can see the alternatives that I've avoided by investing in these things. So the alternatives being a very nice way of saying global heat death and things like that. Here's how I've helped make a difference. So, yeah. Indeed, yes, yeah. It's for me, it's very interesting. I'm a good 15, 20 years older than the rest of you, and therefore I kind of
I started my career in efficiency is incredibly important because all the machines are really pants and don't run, and to write high performance software, you have to be thinking about carbon efficiency effectively. Thanks. That's thank you for those answers. They were all very good. Now I will go back to your official, although I think we're running out of time. We'll ask one more question quickly, and then they can always cut it if we've terribly overrun. So one of the other questions I had was that tooling doesn't necessarily need to be just software. It can also be ideas, it can be methodologies. Like Agile is a type of tooling. What tooling would you like to see? You already talked a little bit about this, but like a one-liner, because we're finishing off. What tool would you like to see exist in 5 years that doesn't exist now for carbon awareness and efficiency?
I might jump in just because
Colleen, jump in.
Push myself in. I want to see test-driven development tools. So libraries that let us easily test and monitor energy consumption, all hooked in to the company build system so that it's as second nature as other metrics currently are now.
Oh, that is a really good answer.
Yeah, I love that. And I would add tooling that lets people make decisions, based on the energy source that they're, like, maybe I choose a data center in Oregon because it has renewable energy and I can afford some, sacrifice in latency or other trade-offs, but just something that gives you a little bit better, just like more informed decision-making when you are building your applications.
Yeah. And I think I'll just add on the small one. I'd like the equivalent of food labels, your red, amber, green, just so that someone can, without having to look at all the details, know if I pick this service, I've made a good choice and someone's checked this for me.
And then just to your point on practices, Anne, I would add to that, we talked about it in the beginning, but it's super important that we don't put the responsibility entirely on developers. And I've talked a lot about developers today, but building an inclusive approach to solving these problems, I think, is critical, because you do need, product managers, you do need technical program managers, you do need all kind of skill sets and backgrounds to really tackle this and think of it as a holistic approach to solving it.
Yeah,
I've got nothing to add to that except to say that one's really close to my heart.
I've had people passionate at VMware talking about like papers they've read on more sustainable UX design. It can be really everywhere.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, and it can, all your best intentions can be totally rolled over if your procurement department says only go for the cheapest solution and they don't start factoring in long-term carbon awareness, that kind of thing. But thank you very much to all three panel members today. You've been excellent. The answers have been absolutely excellent. It's been a very good panel. So thank you very much indeed. And for all you hackathon folk, good luck. And do change the world if you win.
Yes. Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Anne. Thanks, everyone. Good luck.
You.
Nice to meet
It's
everyone.
good to meet you all.
Hello. It's fantastic to be here. And what an exciting event, really. We are sort of sharing today. It is incredible, thinking about the prizes that have been awarded already. They're called minor prizes, but I think the impact could be genuinely major. So one of the things that we will be presenting, and it's a perfect timing in terms of mapping, is the State of Green Software report that we will be launching in the first quarter of 2003. It will be the first report to map the new green software ecosystem, from key stakeholders to regulatory frameworks, from impact metrics to academic literature, open source tooling to actionable design patterns. So you can get involved already by taking the survey. It's a survey that is open now from the 10th of November to the 31st of December. All software practitioners can contribute. There are 23 required and 3 optional questions. with short, quick answers. The survey will take no more than 5 minutes to complete, and the results are expected to be available in February 2023. In addition to all this, this is a real opportunity. So it's not just about finding information. It's an opportunity for developers who take our survey to help us understand what needs to happen to empower technologies to make a global difference. And we need your input. This is going to be a report that will be seen by decision makers, thought leaders, guiding institutions. So your voice will go somewhere. So often filling in surveys is a bit like casting your shot into the dark and hoping that somebody sort of receives it. But in this case, the focus is entirely on influencing action. So join in sort of putting your voice, putting your ideas, putting your preferences, and helping us understand where to go. You will help us create the first report on green software that will map the green software ecosystem. We will identify key stakeholders, regulatory frameworks, impact metrics, and more. And you can be part of something amazing to do this. In addition to the report, we will be conducting interviews with stakeholders across the ecosystem. I will be doing a lot of desktop research in order to map where we are at, interviewing some of the people who have spoken here, mapping some of the projects that have won here, but really trying to create a common framework, a common language, and a common roadmap for going forward. So I will not go into the detail around sort of what is a green software and what is the problem, because it's been fantastically explored in the panels so far that we've heard that have been so very inspiring and insightful. So the key area here is that we will be focusing on a number of constituencies. We will, at the end of it, have produced a report that will help developers seeking to measure and improve the carbon footprint of their software to know how to do it. You'll be able to look at the report and understand where to go to find the best patterns. You will know where to go to find the best metrics. You will know where to go to find the best tools. It is a gateway into empowering developers at the ground to transform the ecosystem. It is also designed or intended to be a tool for business, technical, and product leaders making investment decisions, technology choices, and strategic calls. How do you know where to focus? How do you know how to ensure that you achieve all of your commercial and strategic aims and also make the planet better? And obviously these two things go together. And it is also aimed to assist guiding institutions and thought leaders setting the global and national standards, whether it be regulations or policy objectives. All of the people who are working on defining how software should proceed will be able to use the report in order to know what metrics, what standards to incorporate into the regulations, what are the stakeholders they need to involve, who is who in this ecosystem, and vice versa for those people who are trying to influence these guiding institutions, trying to shape discourses around green software, to be able to have a framework and a tool to understand where the standards are getting set, who is driving the regulatory agenda, and how can we shape the policy objectives so that when the next COP, not the COP27 in which we are now, but the Summit for the Future that is coming up next, this agenda of greening software is front and center and easily actionable. So why should you read this report when it's ready? To stay on top of everything that is going on globally in the green software space. This report will give you insights into the level of awareness, adoption, friction, and enablers of green software from the perspective of both software developers and key decision makers. It's a bit like this panel that we have been hearing, all of these panels that have been telling us how much the world has moved on in very few years, how much the receptivity has grown. But of course, there remain significant barriers, significant friction points. I hope that by the end of this report, we will be able to identify them so that as an ecosystem, as opposed to just as silos or individuals, we are able to prioritize the movement forward. What is the state of the art in environmental impact metrics for digital products? What are actionable patterns and tools that we can use for decarbonizing software? The commercial, regulatory, and technological business case for green software, who is who in the green software ecosystem, and where to access green software education and skills. So this is coming up. You can be part of it, and you can be part of it by supporting the survey and by thinking already and planning how you'd like to implement the findings that come here in your organizations and networks. Thank you very much for this, and I yield the floor.
So I'm really excited to share another of our releases, the Green Software Speakers Bureau. So since we launched, and especially since we launched our Green Software Summit, which we ran in summer this year, the foundation has just seen significant demand for expert speakers in the green software domain. I mean, I personally get asked, weekly or multiple times weekly, if I can speak at some event somewhere. So the demand also comes with, a need to cater to different geographies, different languages. I only speak one language, and I'm based in the UK. So in response, we've set up a speakers bureau, a live catalog of speakers in green software. And our goal is to facilitate the search and booking of the most knowledgeable practitioners in this field. You've heard several people on the call today who are in this catalog, people who are interested in speaking and knowledgeable about speaking in green software. So the website is speakers.greensoftware.foundation, or actually speakers.greensoftware.org as well also works. And when you land on the page, you'll find a list of all the speakers we currently have on in the catalog. I mean, our goal, our mission is that no major IT conference in the world should take place without at least one green software speaker. And I'm really excited to say that more and more we're seeing entire conferences setting up whole tracks on green software. So the field is really maturing to that space, but we need to support it. We need to provide speakers, make it easier to find speakers on green software. And that's why we built this website. So speakers.greensoftware.foundation is where you'll go to for this. So in this place, you can then search for speakers, and you're probably going to search for speakers in your location. I'm based in London. These are the speakers in London. You can search for UK. You can search for other criteria. What language do they speak? Oh, English. Yep. What language do they speak? So you can look for certain different types of criteria for speakers. Once you found a speaker you particularly like, maybe it's me, you can click on them. You can find out details, their biography, their speaking experience. I've spoken a lot. It says Spanish. I don't know Spanish, so we'll change that. I don't know Spanish, so we'll remove that. But it gives information about what can I talk about? What are my areas of interest? Past speaking engagement, so you can check speakers out. You can see what are they talking about? What's their style like? Will they fit my event? Am I willing to travel? Things like that. And all other, social media links, etc. as well. And if you want to get in contact with one of the speakers, you can actually just directly, we're not revealing their email addresses, so you can contact them and it will bring up a form, and we will do the pairing for you. We'll join you together. If you don't particularly have, or you don't particularly mind which speaker you get, or you have a budget, a travel budget, you're willing to bring people over to you, you can feel free to submit a call for papers. For those of you who don't know, if you're a conference, you might send out something called a call for papers, which is you can submit a talk to a conference, and then they'll see if you'll see if your talk gets into the final lineup. So if you want to do is submit a call for papers that will go out to all of our speakers, you could submit a call for papers there. And if you yourself are a speaker is somebody who's wants to learn, or is willing to talk about green software, does talk about green software, just head to the website, click out a speaker. It's again another form. We'll fill you in, and you'll get added to the website. So this is the Green Software Speakers Bureau, another of the releases that we're making today, and you can get to it to speakers.greensoftware.foundation. So currently we have about 30 speakers in the catalog right now. We're expected to grow quite significantly over the next couple of weeks. These are all people with subject matter expertise in green software and willing to talk about green software. They have industry experience. These are the people you want to speak at your event. And extended, this is not the end of the product. We're going to build more into it. We're going to, especially for Earth Day next year, so April next year, we're going to extend it with more features, including speaker resources and materials. So if you're a budding speaker and you're looking to just start your journey into speaking, we're going to provide you the resources in order to help you to become a speaker in green software. Speaker training, mentoring, education, all of those we're going to be able to provide in future versions. So that's our Green Software Speakers Bureau. We're really excited to finally have this out. We think this is going to this is speaking to the culture change aspect of our theory of change. We need a lot more people who are willing to talk about green software, and this is how we're going to make that happen. So next up, we have Vaughan. I mentioned Vaughan earlier on, so he's a lead for, well, I'll let him explain what he's a lead of, but he's going to talk about the Carbon Aware SDK.
Thanks, Asim. I just need to share my screen quickly. Excellent. So, hello everybody. My name is Vaughan Knight. I lead the Carbon Aware SDK project. Firstly, just wow. It's amazing to see just how far green software is moving and how fast it's moving. And I'd like to thank all the GSF members who've collaborated in bringing this project together, which I'm about to talk about. And an extra special thanks, the team from Avanade who've really helped me run the project. And we've had some significant contributions from UBS and Microsoft that's helped us get to this 1.0 release, but not just get there, but get there with an enterprise-grade, enterprise-deployed solution, running real-world workloads. So here I'm going to give a quick demo of the SDK. I'm actually looking at the API components, and the thing that's important to understand is it's really simple to sort of get the data and to be able to act on it. And there's a lot of different ways that you can interact with the API, but I'm just going to look at it quickly here. One of the things that you can do is you can go and look at it by locations. And so here I've got the UK South as one of the locations. And if I run the API just quickly here, we should get back some data, and we can see that currently, because we didn't put any time, it's just giving us the current reading. Currently in the UK, it's around about 473 grams per kilowatt hour. So that's how much carbon is being produced when you're consuming power in the UK. If we were to add, Australia East, because you're probably wondering, well, that's good to know, I can report on it, but how does that help me actually make decisions, and how can I make my applications carbon aware? And if we go and look at the data for Australia, it's 811 grams of carbon per kilowatt hour. So you can see that if you had the choice, Australia and the UK are a long way apart, but if you had the choice between running a workload in one place or the other, you could massively reduce your carbon footprint. And so that's sort of looking right now. And so that's looking at different locations. But one of the things that we can do is if we use the forecast API, we can actually go in here and have the UK South and Australia East again, and we'll look at some time in the future. I don't want to get too much data, but we can see that in the future, the UK is sitting at 448 in the future, and Australia's sitting at 840. It even gets worse. So with that, you can do things such as understanding the future where you should do something, but you could also say, hey, should I run it now, or can I run it at a different time in the future in the location that I'm in? Maybe you're not moving it between locations. You might just be running it locally within your current location. Okay, and so if we just sort of kick on to the next slide, and excellent, thank you very much. So the ultimate goal of creating tools around is about accelerating and democratizing green software, and the ability to know where green energy is or know when the green energy will be. It needs to be a capability everyone can obtain, and green software only works when everyone has the ability to innovate and help build a sustainable future, which is what we're really trying to sort of kick off with the Carbon Aware SDK and many more things to come. I want to sort of do a big thank you to everyone's fantastic contributions through the year, and even more so, I look forward to just seeing the amazing ideas that are coming in the future. And 3 of those we're about to talk about very quickly as we announce the top 3 award winners for the hackathon. And I've got Ismail joining me as well. Are you there, Ismail?
I am. Hello.
Excellent. Thanks. Good to see you again.
Yes, indeed.
So I'll kick off with the first sort of drum roll. And the 3rd place winner is
Software Carbonize Scripting.
I'm Andy Wood, and this video is about Circa, my project for Carbon Hack 22. I chose to look at the problem of task schedulers, and instead of running daily or weekly tasks at fixed times using whatever energy is available at that time, whether we can use the Carbon Aware SDK to change when they run so that they use lower carbon electricity. But writing a task scheduler is a big job, and getting people to adopt new core infrastructure feels difficult. They might see it as risky. So instead I chose to focus on how we could remove barriers to using this sort of technology by looking at the small sort of lightweight steps that could be taken to make it easy. I was adopting the Unix philosophy of writing a program that does one thing and does it well, in particular inspired by the Unix command nice for setting process priorities. So please meet Circa, a little command that consults the Carbon Aware SDK for the best time in a particular time frame to run a program, and then waits for that time before continuing. The first thing to do to use it is to install it, which is done in a very familiar way if you've ever installed any Unix commands. It's written in vanilla C and uses common libraries, so it works across most platforms. To test it, I chose to write a little script that checks for the best 2-hour window in a particular location to plug your laptop in, and shows a little notification when that time comes round. So Circa is ready to be used in task schedulers, but my overall goal is that the command could be used like a signature as a standard way of marking tasks as being carbon aware. Although there are other extensions that we could make, I think it's a pretty good first step.
Bravo. I think it's an amazing achievement to have something so simple, so composable, and so very scalable, which leads us to the drum roll for the 2nd prize winner, which is
the Carbon Aware DNN training with Zeus. And we'll kick off to the video.
Hi, I'm Zhening. I'm pleased to introduce our project, Carbon Aware DNN Training with Zeus. With skyrocketing adoptions of deep learning in various application domains, training deep neural networks on GPUs generates more carbon footprints than ever. For instance, training GPT-3 generates around 500 metric tons of carbon. However, our core insight is that all the energy and carbon poured into the GPUs have diminishing returns. DNN training takes hours to even weeks, and carbon intensity changes during the training process. The core of our solution is to periodically query the carbon-aware API for the forecasted intensity. If clean electricity is coming, try to make a lots of training progress. When it's not, slightly slow down the GPU and have it consume less electricity during that period. We do this by tuning what's called the power limit of the GPU. Changing the power limit achieves exactly what we want, and our solution does this automatically during training. To test it, we trained a DNN called the ResNet50 on the ImageNet dataset with and without Zeus, and the trade-off we accomplished are remarkable. While sacrificing training time by only 3%, we reduced carbon emission by 24%. Our solution not only brings large gains, but also can be easily incorporated into any DNN training job with minimum code changes. We plan to upstream carbon awareness to the open source Zeus shortly. Moreover, we are working on integrating Zeus with Kubeflow, the largest open source MLOps platform. Thank you.
Excellent. And now we have the big one, first prize, which is very exciting. And we won't waste too much time, but quick drum roll, because the first place winner is
low carb.
The energy consumption of AI is going through the roof. Training modern machine learning models consumes hundreds of megawatt hours of energy, resulting in hundreds of tons of carbon emissions, although such models are usually trained in highly efficient data centers. This problem will become even bigger soon, since in practice it is often not possible to collect all data in one central location for privacy reasons. This is why Google introduced federated learning in 2016, where a machine learning model is being trained directly on end devices without ever transmitting any data. The problem is, these trainings take longer, and end devices are usually less efficient, so energy usage is expected to further increase. Use cases for federated learning range from recommender systems on smartphones, over IoT applications, healthcare, banking, satellites in space, till autonomous vehicles. Imagine millions of cars with lots of computing power required for autonomous driving that generate terabytes of data every day. When parked and charging, they can improve a common model in a privacy-aware manner, however, while consuming huge amounts of energy. What if we could make these trainings carbon aware? We developed a plugin for the popular federated learning framework Flower, which does exactly that. Instead of randomly selecting clients on every training round, it picks clients that are currently, according to forecasts provided by the Carbon Aware SDK, in a time window of low carbon intensity. We tested our approach on a concrete use case. 100 hospitals distributed over 14 locations want to train a common model for detecting thorax diseases. However, for data privacy reasons, they cannot share their patients' x-rays, so they go for a federated learning approach. We performed this training twice on real data during the same 4-day period. Once with the default random client selection that comes with Flower, and once with our plugin activated, which managed to reduce the carbon emissions out of the box by 13%, without any sacrifices on training duration and final accuracy, and without introducing unfairness in client selection. Our prototype is publicly available, open source, and ready to use. Try it out now.
fantastic. And we have a winner joining us now, Philip. Good to see you. It's awesome to have you here, and well done. Yes, very well done. And very well done to everybody. I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think there was so many competitors, but you can only have one first place. So I guess my question to you would be, one of my questions to you would be, where to now? What do you want to do next?
I think the next step would be to get the project out in the community, to actually make people aware of it, academic as well as industry conferences and wherever, to really get the project out so people start using it. I think that's the most important part. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what gave you the idea? What drove the idea? Do you work in the space, or is it just something you?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a PhD student, a researcher at the Technical University in Berlin. And this entire topic, carbon-aware computing, also federated learning, is exactly my research topic. So it was very well aligned with the with the project. And then, yeah, I asked two friends if we want to participate in this thing. So we came up with an idea and implemented it. And yeah, we're really happy and very grateful. And also very proud, yeah, that you appreciated our work so much. So thanks a lot.
Oh, well, so we're very grateful and very proud as well. Ismail, do you want to ask?
Yeah, massive congratulations. I think it's such a complete submission. It's a really strong pitch, beautifully presented. It is a very well executed, sort of feasible, implementable solution. And it has both of the poles of sort of high reduction and high risk, because and high reach, sorry, because it's such a huge expandable thing, and at the same time the level of electricity consumed is huge. So it's a really worthy winner, I think, and massive congratulations.
Thank you so
much.
And
I think this leads us to I think where you finished is a great place to make two announcements to close this. And the first announcement is that all the winners will be supported by WattTime with an API key, which means that you'll be able to continue to build your solution around the WattTime API using the Carbon Aware SDK of the Green Software Foundation. And the other exciting announcement is that the Green Software Foundation is partnering with the Adora Foundation to provide ongoing support to all the winners. So exactly the thing you said you'd like to focus on next. How do you socialize your idea? How do you connect it to the right people? What is the next step? The Adora Foundation will provide free support, free mentorship, free guidance without any proprietary relationship. It's your project, and will broker the relationships potentially. For example, if some people from the Green Software Foundation steering group, some of the people who are watching this are very excited by one of the solutions, we can help make that connection. So you'll be the inaugural cohort of the incubation lab of the Adora Foundation. And hopefully by the end of this, all of these solutions will be the next generation in green software.
Thank you again, Philip.
Thanks to you.
Now handing back to Asim.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Wow. I'm honestly just so proud of everybody who took part in the hackathon, all of the solutions, but especially to our winners. Such an impressive set of solutions, exactly what we were hoping for. I'd also like to say a big thank you to all of our chairs and the project leads in the foundation who've been working so hard over the last year on all of our releases. It's just been such an honor to work with all of you. You know, we launched just over about 18 months ago, and the impact we're having is because of all of you and all the hard work you've put into this. And again, thank you to our member organizations, to all of our hackathon sponsors, and also to the staff of the GSF who've been working so hard to get this event and to get the hackathon over the line. Thank you to all of you. We've had a lot of sleepless nights over the last 2 months, but I think we've come out with something that I'm very, very proud of. So, you know, next steps, you know, Ismail highlighted this before, and I just want to bring it to attention again. You know, the State of Green Software is the report that I wish I had, you know, 3-4 years ago when I first started in this space. You know, the goal of this report is to drive investment into green software. I'd say we need about $1 billion. We need about $1 billion invested in green software. So if you want to convince your lead to invest in a green software project idea of yours, send them your proposal and then attach our report. That's the intention of the report, to drive investment and to make changes. And a big part of that report is the survey for software practitioners. It takes just 5 minutes to complete. Completing this survey can really help convince, you know, corporations to invest in this space. So please fill it out. Please share to your friends and to your colleagues. This is a really easy way for you to have an impact in this space. And just the final thing is, you know, we announced many things during the event. It can be hard to keep track of all of them. So we created an article called The Book of News, which details everything we're releasing. The link, if you can go to the next slide, the link, grunsoft.org/Bonn Book of News will take you to that document. So if you want to catch up on everything that's been said today, that's a document to go that has all of our information. So just the next slide. Thank you again. Thank you again for all of our sponsors, to everybody involved, to everybody watching. Keep in touch, join our newsletter, and we'll see you again next year.